If they can, state board.
Time is now 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. It does appear we have a quorum present. This time, if you would, please join with me in saying the invocation. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us all together again tonight. If you would, please keep your hand upon us and lead us as we go about doing the people's business. We thank you for all your blessings. Amen. Please join me in saying the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank y'all. I have no comments tonight other than to remind everyone that Fallback Fest is coming up on Friday night and to tell you how great the crowd looks tonight. We come in here so often and there's only a few people, but it's nice to see a bunch of people coming out tonight. I wish we saw folks more often, but it really is nice to see y'all today. Move on down to item 6.1 under presentations and recognitions. Presentation of Beautification Foundation Quarterly Business Award to Brielle Designs and Alterations. Is Kathy up on here? You want to come up and?
Don't be shy.
Laney.
Good to see you.
Steve Cohen nominated Miss Bree here for the quarterly award. And she has been in business for a year. Her business is Brielle Designs and Alterations. And she is here along with her parents. This is Paul and Diane Everett, and this is Bree Everett. And her parents are behind the scenes kind of supporting and helping her. And he helped her do this lovely landscaping, which is absolutely gorgeous. And so we wanted to award her this. And at her business, she offers embroidery, alterations, clothing designs, and she said anything sewing, so she does any and everything. She's starting some kid classes November the 28th for sewing classes, and adults in February, which would be interesting. And on behalf of the city and the Beautification Foundation, we would like to award for your beautification of the city.
I would like to say, so Bree actually rents the building that she's in, but she spent money out of her pocket to do the beautification that she had in the front of her building, and her dad did all the work, so.
It's over across from Citgo on Meeting Street, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it looks wonderful. If y'all haven't seen it, please take a chance to go by and look at it and check out our business. But I look at it every morning. I eat breakfast every morning at Citgo, and it really does look great. You did a wonderful job.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank y'all. Thank you.
Well, she did.
Moving down to item 6.2 is a proclamation for November to be recognized as Native American Month 2022. It's up.
Whereas in 1990, George H.W. Bush declared November as Native American Heritage Month. Native American Heritage Month is a time to recognize and honor the remarkable contributions made to the nation, history, culture, and Native American traditions. Native Americans within the nation, South Carolina, Lexington County, and the city of West Columbia have made invaluable contributions, including their role as the first keepers of our environment. And whereas, while there is only one federally recognized tribe, the Catawba, the state of South Carolina has 9 state-recognized tribes: Beaver Creek Indians, Edisto Natchez, Cusco Tribe of South Carolina, PD Nation of Upper South Carolina, PD Indian Tribe of South Carolina, Santee Indian Organization, Piedmont American Indian Association of South Carolina, the Sumter Tribe of Chiraw Indians, Wasamasa Tribe of Varnertown Indians, and the Waccamaw Indian people. South Carolina also has recognized 5 state tribal groups and 2 tribal special interest organizations: Chalaklawa Chickasaw Indian People, Eastern Cherokee, Southern Iroquois, and United Tribes of South Carolina, Inc. Natchez Indian Tribe, PD Indian Nation of Beaver Creek, Piedmont American Indian Association of South Carolina, American Indian Chamber of Commerce of South Carolina, and Little Horse Creek American Indian Cultural Center. And whereas South Carolina Native American tribes work to maintain their dynamic culture, heritage, customs, and traditions, Native American tribes have enriched lives by teaching and sharing their history, language, and culture through storytelling, dance, native regalia, art, and traditional food to instill within and pass along to all future generations. And whereas South Carolinians have a responsibility to learn about the history of tribal governments, the unique challenges Native people have faced historically and continue to face today, including the hiding of their identities and cultures, missing and murdered Indigenous women and people epidemic, and the abhorrent history and trauma that exists as the result of Indian boarding school system. In the face of this adversity, Native Americans determined to persevere for future generations to succeed with pride and experience equality for all. And whereas West Columbia celebrates the enriched and diverse cultures, traditions, and historical events evolving through time of Native Americans, while acknowledging the significant contributions they make to our military, armed forces, education, healthcare, archaeology, agriculture, engineering, government, economics, art, science, and literature. And whereas the mayor and city council of the city of West Columbia hereby recognizes the outstanding contributions and honors the many accomplishments and achievements of tribal governments and Native Americans in the community, state, and nation. The mayor and city council encourages its citizens to celebrate Native American Heritage Month by learning more about the Native American heritage, culture, and history. And now therefore be it proclaimed that the mayor and city council of the city of West Columbia hereby proclaim the month of November Native American Heritage Month. Proclaim this first day of November 2022.
Is there a motion that this be proclaimed? Is there a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, if you're in favor, please raise your hand. Ms. Tyson, would you like to come up? Is there anybody else you'd like to bring with you?
Yes, sir.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Mr. Mayor.
Nice to see you. Thank y'all. Have a nice night. Moving down to item 6.3 is a proclamation for November the 18th, 2022, to be recognized as Indigenous Business Day. Ms. Upton.
Whereas Indigenous Peoples' Day was first proposed in 1977 at an international conference on discrimination sponsored by the United Nations. South Dakota was the first state to recognize the day in 1989, and the cities of Berkeley and Santa Cruz, California followed. And whereas President Joe Biden issued a proclamation naming November 2021 as National Native American Heritage Month in celebration of the countless contributions of Native peoples and the influence they have had on the advancement of our nation. And whereas South Carolina General Assembly amended the Code of Laws of South Carolina, 1976, by adding section 53-3-260 to designate the second Monday of October of each year as Indigenous Peoples' Day in South Carolina. And whereas nationally, there is an estimated 24,433 American Indian and Alaska Native owned and 200,256 Indigenous individuals employed, Approximately $33.7 billion has been contributed to the national economy by federally recognized tribe and indigenous business owners. And whereas Moda Enterprises Chief Executive Officer Vanessa Moda celebrates South Carolina Indigenous Business Day and the contributions made to South Carolina, local communities, and recognizes and rewards individual accomplishments of Indigenous business and community leaders. And whereas South Carolina Indigenous Business Day will be celebrated on November 18th, 2022 in the city of West Columbia, with events that recognize local business owners for their contributions to the West Columbia community and to the economy. And now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and city council of the city of West Columbia does hereby proclaim November 18th, 2022 as South Carolina Indigenous Business Day in the city of West Columbia, South Carolina.
Is there a motion that this be proclaimed?
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, if you're in favor, please raise your hand. I don't see Vanessa or Ulysses. Come on up. Please tell everybody to sit down. Moving now to item 6.4, proclamation for November the 26th to be recognized as 2022 Small Business Saturday. So,
Whereas Small Business Saturday was originally created by American Express in 2010 as a way to spotlight and support small, independently owned businesses across the country. And whereas Small Business Saturday falls between Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And whereas Small Business Saturday is a day dedicated to support the diverse range of local businesses that help Small Business Administration, there are 32 small businesses in the United States, which generated 62% of the net new jobs created from 1995. Small businesses employ 46.8% of the employees in the private sector in the United States. And whereas, according to the Small Business Administration, small businesses are the lifeblood of the United States economy and account for 44% of the United States economic activity. And whereas, according to the 2018 Small Business Economic Impact Study that was conducted on behalf of American Express, on average, for every dollar spent at local small businesses, 67% stays in the local community. And whereas 58% of shoppers reported they shopped online with a small business and 54% reported they dined or ordered takeout from a small restaurant, bar, or cafe on Small Business Saturday in 2021. And whereas the city of West Columbia supports its local businesses that create jobs, boost the local economy, and preserve our communities, and celebrates local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. And now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and city council of the city of West Columbia do hereby proclaim November 26, 2022 as Small Business Day in the city of West Columbia, and urges the residents of West Columbia and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year.
is there a motion that this be proclaimed?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, if you're in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Hey, I'm sorry I skipped a part. Ms. Tice, I understand you have some artifacts that were found in West Columbia that you'd like to show.
We sure do. Mr. Dean here, he has all kind of archaeological stuff here. And I want to say, we put it up here and show it to you.
Hey, I don't know if it'd be possible to lay it on the, I hate to call it a projector, but whatever the.
Found locally
Hey, that's pretty fancy.
within the town limits of West Columbia.
That's awesome.
Service bonds and fields and creeks. Anywhere from 1,000 years old to 30,000 years old.
That's awesome.
Which one's 30,000 years old?
That's the most expensive. Those are spear points and arrowheads, but mostly spear points. Some were brought as far away as Michigan to use those.
I think it's very neat that he does a lot with the kids too around here, doing archaeological digs and such, so.
Absolutely.
it's really neat and kind of honoring and things of that nature. I know I did one with the University of South Carolina Native American Studies Center during May, and that was really cool. We beat rivers and thinking we have things like this here in West Columbia. It's pretty neat.
Absolutely. Is there any way to get in touch with y'all if anybody has any curiosity about local artifacts or?
Of course, we'll get the contact.
That'd be great. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that with us. Moving down to item 6.5, it's a resolution recognizing John Teeter for his work with Saluda River Baptist Youth Sports Program. And Mr. Teeter basically is the sports program. Is that what you would?
Whereas John Teeter was born in Beaufort, South Carolina on January 12, 1970, to Fred and Barbara Teeter. He graduated from Cambridge Academy in 1988 and went on to attend Clemson University and Lander University. He has lived in West Columbia, South Carolina for 30 years. He is married to Christine Teeter and has 2 children, Charlotte and Rivers. And whereas John Teeter has worked for the state of South Carolina in law enforcement for 35 years and is currently working for the Office of Regulatory Staff as a detective. And whereas John Teeter has worked for Saluda River Baptist Church for 8 years as the director of sports. He has grown the program at the church over the years to now include basketball, baseball, and soccer. Each season, about 100 to 120 children participate in each sport. John Teeter wants all families to be able to participate in a fun, Christ-centered environment where they will learn more about each sport. John Teeter includes devotionals and prayer time in each practice and on game days. And whereas John Teeter organizes registration, practices, game schedules, and uniforms for each team. In addition, John Teeter coaches several teams which involves 2 to 3 nights of practice each week. He runs the entire sports program on Saturday mornings, gets to know the children, makes sure every child feels accepted, gets fair playing time, and makes playing sports at Saluda River Baptist Church fun for all. And whereas John Teeter organizes an end-of-the-year banquet to celebrate each player and award each player with a trophy. He organizes a meal for the families, hosts a fundraiser for the organization, and has prizes for the families. John Teeter offers summer sports camps and NERF camps outside of the regular seasonal sports. These camps are filled to capacity and have a waiting list. And whereas John Teeter not only makes the players feel included, but also the families and extended families. John Teeter never forgets a player or family that has participated in the program. He often runs into families impacted by this program years after they have outgrown playing there. And they always have something positive that they remember about him or the program. And now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and city council of the city of West Columbia does hereby recognize John Teeter for his years of dedicated service to the Saluda River Baptist Youth Sports Program. The mayor and city council expresses its gratitude and extends its appreciation to John Teeter for his dedication to the youth and his contributions to the West Columbia community. City council wishes John Teeter continued success in his future endeavors.
Is there a motion that this be proclaimed? Is there a second? I'll start the discussion. I owe you a personal thank you, but I need to correct something. I said John Teeter is the entire program, and that's not correct. The Teeter family is the entire program. So y'all really have made it a family business, a family endeavor, with you being the head of it. But I'm so thankful for what you've done for my family, the activities that you led over there. Not just for my family, but for so many families in the greater West Columbia area. I hear from folks all the time. As soon as I mention that my kids play sports over there, they have stories about when their kids played years before and just all that you meant to them. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I wish you the best with all your future endeavors. We will miss you so much around here and all that y'all have meant to us. So, if anyone else has anything they'd like to say? If you would, please come up, bring whoever you want to with you. If you have anything you'd like to say, feel free to do it.
Thank you to the community, made a lot of us. We've had a lot of support there throughout the years.
These are for Thank you.
objection, I'd like to table it, leave it on one motion. Any objection? You're exactly right. If you're in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carter. Thank you, Ms. Huffman, for your wonderful job reading everything tonight. Moving down to item 7.1 and 7.2, this time we welcome a motion for approval of the minutes from the regular council meeting held on October the 4th, 2022, and for the special council meeting held on October the 17th, 2022. Is there such a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, if you're in favor, please raise your hand. Moving down under new business, item 8.1 is first reading consideration of an ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of a not exceeding $1,600,000 general obligation bond series 2023 for the city of West Columbia, South Carolina, to prescribe the purpose for which the proceeds shall be expended, to provide for the payment thereof and other matters relating thereto. Mr. Black, you got anything you want to share on that?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. As we have presented before, this is the first reading of a bond ordinance to issue a new GO bond. This is for city hall improvements and to help fund city hall improvements and the PD evidence facility. I don't know if I have any specific questions of the material that's been provided, but be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any questions?
I thought that we were gonna discuss this a little bit more. I haven't seen any details on the project moving forward that we're going with, so I was kind of curious about that. I was kind of expecting at the last meeting in the executive session, we thought that was going to be next, and we talked about. I would like to know a little bit more details about the plan for voting.
This is not a vote for a specific plan for the evidence facility or the maintenance upgrades that need to be done to City Hall. You're familiar with HVAC system is something that we continue to have trouble with. It's installed in 2004. That's at the end of its life. It's one of the City Hall improvements. The majority of this is for the evidence facility. And what we are, as stated in the packet that was issued during the last meeting, 1.1 million of that improvements comes from the GO bond that was previously issued. 1.5 will be coming out of this GO bond. This is not a vote for a specific project, but this is a vote to obtain funding so that the projects can move forward in whatever design is presented to council at a later time.
So the audience understands what's going on. If you've been a regular attendee of our meetings over the last several months, there have been many times that the heat and air system hasn't worked. Throughout the summer, we had to take our coats off, come in t-shirts occasionally. That's not such a big deal for members of city council, because we come in here very, very infrequently, but for the men and women who work here throughout the days, all the time, and for the public who comes in and has to do business here, it's a big issue not being able to come into the city hall that's properly climate controlled. The system's almost 20 years old, and instead of continuing to patch it up and repair it, we think for long term it would be better to go ahead and swap out the air conditioning system and do some other minor updates. We also have reached full capacity over in our evidence storage area, and due to the obligations to retain evidence, we've got to expand that capacity. So this is money that's being requested to do that. Any other discussion?
Brian, let me ask you, is there a meeting schedule or a time where we're gonna get more specifics about this project? I know the heat and air, but more specifics about the project.
Yes, you will receive more specifics and details about the evidence facility as well as the upgrades to City Hall. If the mayor, we have representatives from SK that work with us and the contractor. They're having a number of meetings with the chief and other staff and putting information together to bring back to council to explain a clear path forward.
Justin, it may be beneficial to everybody if you explain the timeline on when you expect these bonds to issue and be funded.
So one of the reasons of going through this process now is it is a lengthy process. As you'll note in your packet, we have first reading now, second reading in December, and then upon second reading, we will have bids open for banks to bid on these bonds, an RFP process, and then it goes to approval. We won't go to closing until February of 2023. I feel certain we'll have a plan in place before then, presentation to council.
And if we don't, it's on issue the bonds.
Well, I mean, in first and second reading, we would be going forward in that way, but until we close, we don't have to close them. Their plan.
Okay, so I have a question. So by voting to issue this bond, when we are presented with the plans, we would have the ability to council to vote on the plans.
Council certainly has the ability to discuss those plans and what would be presented in the contractual matter, yes. As far as a vote for a specific plan, that's not something that's required for council.
I had a question here too for Mr. Carter. We're getting ready to, this is a plan to issue $1.6 million in general obligation bonds. What happened to the ARPA money and why are we not considering that for this potential instead of offering general obligation bonds, which give us the full credit of the city behind it?
We have many projects the council has identified as priorities for the city. Those projects require funding from different sources. The ARPA funds are something that are the timing of the dedication of this fund relates to potential funding sources available for Lexington County. When we find out what direction those potential funding sources are taken, then we can come back to City Council with specific recommendations for the ARPA funds for projects related to growth and development and those things that have been identified by council as priorities. The funds that we are talking about with the general obligation bonds are related to the improvement of the evidence facility at the police department as well as upgrades or maintenance requirements for city.
Have we received the ARPA funding yet? And if so, how much?
We have received ARPA funding and it is right at $9 million.
So we have 9 million that we can, and have we had has there been any discussions on that, where we're spending that 9 million yet?
We have not presented a plan to council for that.
And this is all in line with the previous discussions that we've had as to how we're going to move forward with the ARPA, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Which was discussed at length months ago, is that also correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, but Mayor, we have not had any discussion as a council about where we're spending the money. We have only had staff tell us that there's money there and that they are making a plan to use it.
That's right, we discussed that process previously as a city council, that the money would be held until we agreed on how we would spend that money. That's what has occurred. Those discussions were conducted in public. There's been no change to what we all agreed that we would do. So I just don't like the idea of you coming here presenting the thought that city council has hoarded $9 million and we should be using the money to cover these things. But That's all.
I'm sorry, maybe I was incorrect. Can you correct me? Was there a vote taken by the council that we would do that? Or was it just a general, an agreement we had?
Ms. Carter, was there previous discussions in a public meeting about our plans for how we were going to utilize our funds?
There were previous discussions and presentations of council, time for response and feedback from council. I don't recall what votes, if any, were taken, but certainly during public meetings, it has been discussed. As always, we're happy to see your guidance and we're bringing something back to council for the full bodies. But
I'm not concerned about the improvements or anything that we're gonna do on City Hall, because I think that's where we put a lot of trust, and we rightfully so, in our city administration. So I don't think that's an issue. I know that was brought up earlier. I know that it will be done right, and that's something I don't worry about. One of the concerns that I have that, I don't know if this is the best time to be issuing bonds or not, with that money sitting there. I know that rates are really high, right? I'm sure we're not gonna go out there and get the 1.25% that we got, what, 2 years ago? We went read the bonds. I know we're probably gonna get a higher rate. How soon though do you think this money will be put to use? Because I just don't want us to be paying interest and stuff on bonds when we do have that 9 million sitting there. Maybe we could wait a year to go get the funding for that. Rates could be higher at the end of that year, but at least we're not paying interest on that. When do you think the project, if we approve these bonds, that we will break ground on the projects, or we'll have the air conditioning, those type things, we'll be ready to put those in to where we're not just sitting on some money that we could be using for other purposes?
the desire would be first quarter of 2023.
Okay.
Be fully expended within 18 months of issuance, wasn't it?
All right, so
So
that,
we want to break ground on the Evans facility as quickly as possible, but we also need to pay attention to the maintenance issues at City Hall as quickly as possible. Like any project you've all heard from numerous sources, materials are on that. Right now, we're looking at 18 months, 12 months, 9 months to get equipment for our air conditioning, our HVAC system. So we're trying to stay as quick as possible moving forward, also understanding that we want to minimize that delay time. And that's what we're doing. But if we can get this approved and move forward with ordering materials, then we would expect to be doing this in first or early second quarter of 2023.
I guess my question for asking for a little bit more specifics for the plan is, I don't know how much I can say here, but I've seen a number of plans, and I'm not sure what direction we're going, but I do have some concerns about some of the possible directions that make it where, I'm not against necessarily the bond. I mean, I'm certainly in favor of that. Us having, funding for facilities and resources that we have. But I do have some concerns about the, that I plan on bringing up in another forum about, the possibility of cost overruns and things like that are commonly associated with construction. And, that's why, how long do you think it would be before we can get a specific plan?
The last update I received from Joe Brody was this past week. He had just had additional meetings with the chief. They were working with their architect to put together designs to come to council. I don't know if that's going to be mid-month in November or if that will be the meeting. That's what I anticipate, based on my conversation with Joe Brody.
Mr. Carter, does issuing a bond have anything to do with any architectural plans or anything that goes on with any construction project that any governmental entity or municipality may do?
Yes, sir.
So if you get a governmental entity issues a bond, plans could change 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times as long as the plan gets implemented at some point and the bond is fulfilled.
It could, and council certainly has the opportunity to direct, the direction of this project.
So issuing the bond tonight, if we voted in favor of issuing the bond, does that lock us into a specific architectural or other construction plan with regards to any of the projects identified within GO9? Thank you.
So,
Well,
well,
there be,
I asked a question earlier, if we're gonna have any oversight of plans, and I got the answer no, so that's why I'm making that discussion.
Clarify, Councilman, that City Council would have opportunity to discuss the project if there is a specific vote on a specific plan that is not something that is required. The council certainly has the opportunity for input. And if for some reason I didn't make that point clear, I hope that I made it clear.
at least there be any confusion. Mr. Carter, have we already met as a city council to discuss specific plans for this?
Yes,
Do we agree to do revisions to those plans?
yes,
Are we in that process of doing revisions?
yes, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Carter.
I don't think that we've seen a specific plan on this. We saw a specific plan, but that's not what we're going with.
We have.
That's the plan that we're going.
We have seen, I mean, where have you
We're in the
been?
process of doing revisions. That was the last question and comment there. That's not fine. That kind of presupposes that there are changes from the last plan that we reviewed.
Maybe I wasn't here. The last physical plan that we saw was pretty vastly different than what was discussed. And I don't have a problem with either one, except that I would just like to know before I commit people to, to one thing or the other, just kind of a general idea of what direction we're going.
All of this is doing tonight is giving us the ability to go to market and get pricing back on bonds. If that pricing comes back or something's wrong, we can then at that point in time, turn these bonds down. This isn't about architectural review or whatever. And as Mr. Carter said, we will have those plans firmly in place either the next meeting or the following meeting. And we won't be voting on these bonds probably until December anyway, correct?
It's cute what you and Mr. Green are doing, it's just not factually correct.
Well, it's not factually correct to say that I'm talking about architecture.
Right, and Mr. Mayor, I would also remind you that we are spending $3.7 million. This is not 1.6 for the evidence room, it's 3.7 total that we have been planned for. And I believe the plan even went further than that. But I won't say that in open session of what that was, because the only thing that we have here is $3.7 million. We want to take 1.1 million from the remaining 2019-2020 general obligation proceeds, and 1.1 million from the city utility fund. And then issue this $1.6 million general obligation bond, giving the full faith and credit of the city, which means in maybe lean times, we would have to raise taxes in order to make these payments.
Councilman Green, there are absolutely no tax implications of borrowing of this money. There is no adjustment to millage, there's no increase in taxes, there's no decrease in taxes, there's no increase in fees, there's no decrease in fees. This is a revenue neutral decision that we're asking for to fund projects that this city council has said were important to the city of West Florida.
Including you, Mr. Green, should support.
I agree with this, but I did not agree to a higher price tag of $3.7 million or even almost double that amount. And that's the last amount that we had. And from what I understood, that plan was scrapped because it went even higher than that.
Councilman Green, if I could maybe provide some clarification on that.
Go ahead,
That
Mr.
full
Brown.
amount is not talking, it's not related solely to the evidence.
I never said it was.
Can you provide the information on what projects the funding would go toward?
I mean, it's the city hall improvements and the evidence facility upgrade, or new evidence facility.
The city hall improvements include what?
Include electrical work, new control system, new chiller, new duct work, new air handler. It may be a new generator.
So the reason that some of this money is pulled from the utility fund because this building is funded by both our enterprise fund and our general fund. So when we have improvements to this building, we divide that based on the usage of the building between those two funds.
I think it's important when we sit up here as mayor and council and discussing serious issues like bonds and other things, that we ensure that not only are we knowledgeable of what we're discussing and the topic, but also making sure that we don't put out falsehoods about what the topic we're discussing is, especially when we have citizens sitting out. Now is not the time for any government to sit there and either mislead, whether intentionally or unintentionally, their citizens or the constituents. And we need to be honest and transparent, which I think we're trying to do. So I would just advise, or just like to ask all of us on council to try to be mindful of what we do and what we say in general public.
Councilman, so which statements have been inaccurate or misleading? Have I made any statements that are misleading or inaccurate?
When you talk about the tax, yes, that was inaccurate.
Because the $1.6 million general obligation bond fully obligates the city with the good faith and credit of the whole city in order to repay those bonds.
Councilman,
And if we have I'm sorry, do I not still have the floor?
I don't know.
If we have a downturn in the economy, then we will have to raise taxes in order to fund those bonds and to continue to make payments on those bonds.
Well, Councilman Green, I would implore you to go look up what a revenue neutral bond is, or we got Mr. Rhodes here.
This is a general obligation bond.
Mr. Rhodes can explain it to you in private. He is our counsel.
Well, he can explain it to the people if he wishes to right now in open session, which I think would be good.
I don't think that we're gonna have our attorney come up and address the public and give legal advice.
But since you were discussing about things that were not accurate, that will not be to taxes, that one was inaccurate. When Mr. Moore talked about a bond being related to architecture, that's too inaccurate. We could come
When did
on.
the word architecture come out of my mouth?
I think just 5 minutes ago, you said
Yeah,
you
when
were
I
talking
said-
about architecture.
No, I didn't say the word architecture. That's false.
We can play it back there.
Please do.
I mean, I don't understand. I mean, I'm just up here asking that we try to conduct ourselves in a mature and professional way and not sit out here and put out misleading things or things that are not exactly accurate to the public. And yet I have 2 council members arguing with me about that. It's very unfortunate, and I hope we can move forward from it.
So when I sit up here and I say, okay, I'm not clear on what the project is we're working on. We're talking about construction projects. Let's be clear about that, public. We are talking about construction projects. Anybody who's ever done work on their house, anybody who's ever done work on anything understands that when construction projects happen, one thing that's a danger that can happen in any construction project, whether it be through the government or it be through anybody, is a cost overrun. So I think that it's my duty as a city council person to have at least a clear idea about what sort of a project I'm voting on, past, hey, this is going to be for this right here. And I've seen some specific plans, but my understanding was, based on our discussions, that it's deviated a lot from those plans already. So I would like a little bit of clarity. I'm not against the bond. I'm not against any of the things that are there, but I would just like a little bit of clarity. And a casual bystander in the public, if they just read this agenda, would have no idea that we're talking what we're talking about right now.
Because we're not talking about what you think we are, but that you're trying to.
No, but how did I say architecture? That's where it is. You're trying to say that I'm saying something inaccurate. I'm asking the question.
You
do we
said
have
that
someone
you would
here?
like to have say in what was going on. And
I would
that right there is number one, it's questioning the job that we pay our city administrator to do. And that shouldn't be happening in a council meeting. And that right there, we've gone over this. You brought stuff that's been talked about in executive session out to the public. And that shouldn't happen either there.
Listen, anybody up here, they know exactly what the plan looks like, and exactly what we're voting for, besides the amount, then please enlighten me, because I think that we've talked about a couple of different things. And look, I'm just asking questions. I don't understand how that could possibly be wrong.
If you would like to take us into executive session real quick, we will be glad to invite you, because we've gone over this in executive session.
And Councilman, do we not have some oversight?
Hold on 1 second, please. The reason why that isn't being discussed tonight is because it's not on the agenda. We're not talking about the plan. We're talking solely about the funding, which you have said that you are in agreement with. We have had meetings on this. We are in the process of doing revisions of the plan.
Well, I don't appreciate being called misleading or cute, or like I'm talking about architecture, when I simply just want to see the plan, and I want to make sure that we have the ability to approve a plan.
Your comments were that you disagreed with certain parts of the plans that we.
That I heard some plans that I had concerns about.
No, I think you said you disagreed with certain parts of the.
I didn't, oh, let's play it back. I did not say I disagreed. There were some things that I had concerns about.
Everybody fine on voting on whether or not we're gonna issue bonds, solely on whether or not we're gonna issue bonds. We can have discussion on what we're gonna.
And we are
Or
issuing
do
bonds
bonds
here.
later.
We are issuing bonds here. We are not just advertising to go out. This is a vote to issue the bonds. Yeah, Ryan.
This is the first vote authorizing the issuance of bonds. The bonds are not expected to close until February, Mr. Black.
Yes, but it is issuing bonds. It is not just advertising to get rates back for the bonds.
We have two other votes after this in order to get to the issuance point. One,
Bill, what are the?
At some point between now and then, can we have a discussion about what we're talking about building, and then between now and the second time, and then I'll be happy. That's all I want.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to assure you and council that this process is the exact process we have used in every GO bond issuance up to this point. My door is always open. This was originally discussed in front of council on October the 4th. For those of you that have called me with questions, I appreciate that. Mr. Green and Mr. Boyd, obviously there's some questions that needed to be answered, and I have not had the opportunity to speak with you since October the 4th regarding this, but my door is always open. I'm willing to get information to you before these meetings so that you have all the information as you come here to make decisions.
Yes, and I have sent several questions, and I received answers from those, Mr. Carter. I mean, so it's not like I have not reached out to you, or I have not spoken to you about this.
You received or did not receive?
I did receive, I sent questions, and I did receive a response, but I was under, it seemed to me that the impression was that no council went well, or that I and Mr. Moy have not reached out to Mr. Carter.
have you reached out to him about the questions you asked tonight?
I reached out to him in regards to the questions of the funding, which is the question.
Mr. Mayor, I am simply reaffirming to council my availability. Anytime you have any questions about matters that are coming up before this council, I'm an open door and happy to answer as many questions as you have.
So Scott, could we just do this, get it past the first reading, and before we do a final decision, see the plan?
This isn't about.
I know this is not a plan, this is for the bond issue. But I know we gotta go to a second reading with this. Is it possible that we can see a plan of what this bond money is gonna come?
So we have seen
I know we've seen some of it.
and we're in the process of revising what that is going to be.
But we said it's possible to see the vision. How soon can we see the vision?
Councilman Crandall, I will have an answer for you tomorrow. I'll speak with our representatives from LCK and get an updated timeframe for that, and we'll try to give you a solid.
Hearing no further discussion, if you're in favor, please raise your hand. And let the record reflect that Councilmember Bedell has left and Mr. Green has voted in opposition. Moving down to item 8.2, consideration to authorize the city administrator to accept the donation of property located along Flatwood Boulevard, tax map number 004643070006. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, if you're in favor, please raise your hand.
Passed unanimously.
Moving down to item 8.3 is consideration to appoint Marty Taylor as municipal code enforcement officer with authority to enforce municipal ordinances. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? You're in favor, please raise your hand.
Passed unanimously.
Thank you, sir. Moving down to item 8.4 is consideration to appoint Tim McCoy as municipal code enforcement officer with authority to enforce municipal ordinances. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, if you're in favor, please raise your hand.
Passed unanimously.
I did want to just introduce, because I don't believe you had an opportunity to meet Tim yet. Mr. McCoy has filled an open position that we've had since February, so our building department is now completely staffed. And Tim comes to us from Lexington County, where he served as their chief building inspector, so we're excited to have him on our team.
Glad to have you. Moving down to item 8.5, first reading consideration to approve an ordinance to amend Title 5, Chapter 2 of the West Columbia Code of Ordinances in order to adopt 2021 International Building Codes. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have asked to see some of the differences between this, and I have not received any information. If you could forward that to me. Is this going to require two readings or just one?
It will require 2 readings.
Okay, but between now and the second reading, what the difference is between the 2018 code to the 2021 code? And is this on our sheet, it says the 2009 South Carolina Energy Conservation Code. Is that correct, or?
That's correct, that's the last one that was issued.
Okay.
And I do have an email that I can send you with all.
Yeah, if you could send that to me, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, if you're in favor, please raise your hand.
Passed unanimously.
Thank you. Moving down to item 8.6, consideration to approve the West Columbia Dog Park rules. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, if you're in favor, please raise your hand.
Passed unanimously.
Moving down to item 8.7, consideration to approve the City of West Columbia Special Events Policy and Procedure. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Any discussion?
Oh, can Kelly answer a question?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
I think I saw on the application, there was a place for pyrotechnics and fireworks and some other things along those lines. Are we considering that in some of these, or have we used it in the past?
It will all be according to ordinance. If it is something that would happen, on New Year's Eve or something, then ordinance allows it. Otherwise, we have had someone in the past try to use them without permission on a day that was not defined by ordinance. So yes, I do feel like we do need to include that in the application process, so that with events, the thing about it is the more questions you ask, the more you find out. So it is something that we do need to know. The fire marshal needs to know, because they have to approve it. And then of course you guys would have to approve any exceptions.
Oh, I understand. Yeah, now I understand now. I'm sorry. I thought that was more of an allowance of this. But I see what you're saying now, so.
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
Yes, sir. We just like to ask the question because if it's not asked, then we don't know.
Any further discussion? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Hearing none, if you're in favor, please raise your hand.
Passed unanimously.
Moving down to item 8.8, first reading consideration of the planning commission recommendation to establish zoning classification of C2 general commercial for one parcel totaling 0.48 acres at 2114 Sunset Boulevard, tax map number 004674010007. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, if you're in favor, please raise your hand.
Passed unanimously.
Moving down to item 8.9, first reading consideration of the planning commission's recommendation to establish a zoning classification of R3 residential for one parcel totaling 8.84 acres at the intersection of Hembed Drive and Afraid Drive, tax map number 003698010005. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, if you're in favor, please raise your hand.
Passed unanimously.
Moving down to item 8.10, first reading consideration of the planning commission's recommendation to establish a zoning classification of LM Light Manufacturing for one parcel totaling 2.07 acres at 356 Orchard Drive, tax map number 004599-07-034. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
No, the TMS number was 032.
All right. Apologies. Thank you for clearing that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, if you're in favor, please raise your hand.
Passed unanimously.
Moving down to item 8.11, first reading consideration of the planning commission's recommendation to establish a zoning classification of C3 restricted commercial for one parcel totaling 0.47 acres at 3032 Sunset Boulevard, tax map number 004535-05-005. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, if you're in favor, please raise your hand.
Passed unanimously.
Moving down to item 8.12, first reading consideration of the planning commission's recommendation to establish a zoning classification of C3 restricted commercial for one parcel totaling 2.5 acres at 172 McSwain Drive, tax map number 004597-01-031. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none at this time, if you're in favor, please raise your hand.
Passed unanimously.
Moving down to item 8.13, first reading consideration of an ordinance to annex a total of 6.41 acres of property, tax map number 004597-04-004 and 004597-10-004, also known as 1029 Melody Drive and Rest Haven Drive, West Columbia, South Carolina. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, at this time, if you're in favor, please raise your hand.
Passed unanimously.
First reading consideration of an ordinance to annex a total of 0.72 acres of property, tax map number 004597-04-028, also known as 1029 Melody Drive, West Columbia, South Carolina. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Hearing none at this time, if you're in favor, please raise your hand.
Passed unanimously.
Moving down to item 9.1, I would welcome a motion to adjourn to executive session for purposes of a discussion of personnel matters related to the West Columbia Fire Department. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing being done at this time, if you're in favor, please raise your hand. We are adjourned to executive session. You're welcome to stay, you're welcome to go.